So, chapter 4 is never assume. Um, it's really tricky. It's really tricky because quite often when clients come into a clinic, they don't tell us the truth. They don't tell us what's going on for them. They can lie on their forms. It's something that happens all the time. They can forget to tell you that they're taking certain medications just because they're so used to taking it all day, every day. Even though we ask if they're taking any medications, they can kind of just blank out during that question. So often, even though we ask the questions on the form, on our intake forms, our intake forms are so thorough, we ask so many questions, we actually have the question, do you suffer from anxiety, 3 times on the form, just because you always notice that they've filled it in once and not 3 times, just because people blank out, they're quite complacent, they've had a busy day at work, they've driven to the clinic in traffic, they just want to get the procedure done, and they often don't give us the full story on their initial form. So even though they've told you something or they've written something down, you can never really assume anything. So it's really important to ask further questions. And if something just doesn't add up or doesn't seem right, like if they are mentioning some sort of symptoms that just sound like they should have had a diagnosis already, or they might even be on medication for that. I just asked them straight out. I was like, have you been to the doctor about that? Are you taking any medication for that? Even though we've already asked on the form. Even sometimes for me, like I don't like go through every question with a fine tooth comb. I think I do, but I can skip something, I can forget something. So if something's just not quite right and doesn't add up, I always ask further questions to understand the client better, because if I have a full understanding of what's going on in their body, I can make sure that they're safe on the equipment. And by safe, I mean physically safe. Like the equipment's pretty like foolproof, or we know that, they don't know that. But especially like we use gravity fed open systems, so it's pretty hard to kind of hurt anyone with them. They're pretty idiot proof, and I love that about our systems. But at the same time, there's different forms of safe. They need to feel safe. And if people are anxious, and I'll do another video about anxiety because that's a whole other kettle of fish. But if they're anxious, or they may not feel safe emotionally on the machine. And that's something that, us as therapists really do need to be aware of, because it's like, bullying at school. If, the child's physically safe, but they may not feel emotionally safe. So our job as well is to make sure that they're emotionally safe on the machine as well, that they're not, constantly ticking over in their head about all the damage that they've done to their body through the equipment. So we have to be really, really careful and never assume that somebody will be okay, just because they've had kids, or just because they've had colonics before, or just because it would make sense that they'd be all right. But you really have to really delve deeper. And when in doubt, just check on them again. Like, you never really check on someone too much in their first session. There's even been clients where I've had to sit in the room because I just didn't feel 100% sure that they were going to feel safe the whole time. So, I spend extra time with those clients. So you can never, ever, ever, ever assume, and always make sure you cross all your T's and you dot all your I's, and you go through everything again, and you just check on them and remind them to press the buzzer if they need anything. You can never assume that they'll just press. A lot of times people are, in pain or cramping and they forget to press the button. So, check on them. Sometimes, I'll walk past the room and put my ear up to the door just to kind of like listen in, to see if I can hear anything. I can hear them, making any noises that would insinuate they're uncomfortable, or what else? Sometimes if they're fumbling around a bit, you can hear that through the room, and you can hear like something's not right. So then I'll, make an excuse to come into the room, like bring in an extra heat pack, or I'll just knock on the door. You can never assume anything about a client, even if, you've done the form and you've done your checks and they've signed their waiver. You can never assume anything. So really go through everything with a fine tooth comb.